Hello, BookTube. I've got a little mail for you today. Some new arrivals and some packages that, on a dismal, dreary, rainy day, there's been no relief, no open windows where my little bean my little bean is curled up and sleeping there. There's been no windows where we could go out and stretch a leg at all. Uh, I'm not I'm not overly complaining in a meta sense because Massachusetts really needs the rain, but nevertheless, what a blah day. No direct sunlight, no breezes on your face, no stretching a leg and saying hi to neighbors and whatnot. No, nothing like that. Uh, so I've had the distraction of stuff coming in the mail, and I have provided a distraction to my little bean by cuddling with her and playing with her and rubbing her belly, and occasionally trying to get her to go outside, at least a bit. It hasn't really worked. She's actually capable of going without bodily functions for, I think, the 2 days, something like that. So, and I don't want to push that because she's not a puppy anymore. She's what, 8 years old. So I don't want to, or 9 years old, 8 years old. I don't want to push that. But she doesn't want to go out in this, so I've had to take my consolations where I can get them, and I've had a few. Like, for instance, my surly houseboy went to the local comic shop and bought me a facsimile reprint edition. Marvel and DC Comics are both coming out with facsimile reprints of random older issues. Always a delight to get them, especially since my original versions of all of these issues are falling apart. So it's nice to get something that's, nice and tightly made. And the one this time was a facsimile reprint edition of the Uncanny X-Men number 139. Welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Hope you survive the experience. Chris Claremont doing the writing, John Byrne doing the artwork. A glorious stretch of the X-Men. This issue takes place immediately after the Dark Phoenix saga. The team has been badly ripped apart. Jean Grey has died, apparently, and Scott Summers, Cyclops, the leader of the X-Men, has left. He's left the team. So we're left without them, and with mostly the all-new, all-different X-Men, of the team that was introduced to replace the original members of the team. Which made... I was always a little melancholy about that, but I liked the new team members, and maybe in an effort to compensate for that, Claremont brought on another original X-Men. Since in the wake of the Dark Phoenix saga, we lose 2 of the 5 original X-Men, the only 2 who were left on the team. Cyclops and Marvel Girl both gone. So he brings in Warren Worthington III, the Angel, another original member of the team, a mutant who has big, white, fluffy wings growing out of his shoulders, and they allow him to fly. Doesn't have any superpowers other than that. He can fly. I loved it. I loved his very brief return to the team here, even though the Angel is largely useless to the team. As you will see when you follow him in any of the books that he has been in, he was a member of the X-Men, then he was a member of a team called the Champions. Has come back to the X-Men a couple of times until he was violently transformed by Walt Simonson. He was largely useless. You would see a combat scene with the X-Men fighting some big monster, and there would be a picture of the Angel flying around, but he wouldn't be doing anything. He's just a normal guy who can fly. But it didn't matter with this John Byrne artwork. It really didn't matter to me at all. There is Professor X. He is still guiding the team, and he has made Storm the field leader. And here we are with them in the danger room where they are practicing, and it's just terrific to see. This issue, I don't quite know why it's reprinted. I always like to think that there's a reason, some larger reason, pop culture reason why Marvel or DC would reprint the issues that they do. I don't quite know what it would be in this case, but this was a landmark issue in a tiny way because in this issue we learn Wolverine's name. We learned that he's named Logan. In this little exchange here where they've gone to Canada to meet with old friends of his, and one old friend blurts out his name, and Nightcrawler, the X-Men who was with him, had no idea. They've only just called him Wolverine all this time. That was neat. This is also the beginning of an introduction, a further introduction of a Canadian super team called Alpha Flight, who are old friends or enemies of Wolverine, and he has gone to Canada with Nightcrawler in order to make things right with them in order to figure out what his standing is with the Canadian government. And in the course of that story, naturally, we are going to get Wolverine's initial appearance in Marvel Comics in The Incredible Hulk rehashed. We're going to get it retrofitted to the new reality of this character in the X-Men, who by this point, by issue number 139, was the breakout character in the X-Men. Hugely so. No one had any idea how great that would be back then, but they still knew that it was true. The people were buying these books for Wolverine. And we get that. We get a reprise of his appearance in The Incredible Hulk. What was that? Incredible Hulk number 162 and then 180 and 181. And in that original appearance, the Hulk is fighting a Hulk supervillain named Wendigo. A Wendigo. A giant supernatural creature of equal strength and invulnerability to the Hulk. One of the kind of massive heavyweight villains that you need every once in a while in the Hulk's own book. He has to fight someone where he just slugs it out with them. It can't always be the leader or an insidious foe. It has to be something like the Abomination, most famously, or Wendigo. It has to be somebody who can just go toe-to-toe with the Hulk physically. And this, sure enough, this John Byrne and Chris Claremont revise. They take us through Wolverine fighting these two creatures, and it's utterly ridiculous. It was utterly ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous at the time. It's just symptomatic of the way Wolverine has been so incredibly overhyped. He is a normal man who has an unbreakable skeleton and can project unbreakable metal claws out of his knuckles. But he's a normal man. He's not superpowered in any other way. There's a healing factor, so if you punch him, the bruise will heal right away. But the Hulk can lift 100 tons or more when he's enraged. Wendigo can lift 100 tons or more, and both of them are invulnerable. They wouldn't even notice that Wolverine was there, much less be in any kind of danger from tussling with him. They wouldn't even notice he was present. And yet, and this, of course, this issue is leading up to a confrontation with Wendigo. A really good one, because Claremont decides to make Wendigo a mindless beast, as opposed to, a semi-mindless beast. It was fun to revisit this issue. It really was. I have the e-copy of this, so I didn't particularly need this, but that was fun. And then we have a couple of books that I've already opened. I can't remember if I've shown you these already. One of them is from the great folks at Melville House. When are you out? Or early November. This comes out in early November. This is by Vanessa Chang, and it is called The Body Digital. Really neat cover there. This is A Brief History of Humans and Machines, from Cuckoo Clocks to ChatGPT. Oh God, disastrously, the pub sheet refers to Vanessa Chang unironically as a thought leader. Oh God. Which automatically reminds me of that great TED Talk parody video on YouTube. I always think about that video. I think about it all the time. I am a thought leader. Let's hope you're not a thought leader. This book asks the question, what is the relationship between our bodies, our senses, and our technologies? In today's world of blinding technological change, of artificial intelligence and deep fakes and ChatGPT, it is easy to forget that we have always had complicated relationships with technology, whether that technology is computers, player pianos, or even eyeglasses. I would argue there's a fundamental difference between enhanced reality technology of the 21st century and any of those others. But maybe this author will think different. I'm hoping she has other qualifications other than being a thought leader. She's a program director at an International Society for the Arts, Sciences, and Technology. Been a lecturer at California College of the Arts. Well, it's not going to come down to her qualifications. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the worth of the book. I think this is a fascinating subject. I actually wonder how many of you have ChatGPT, and if you use it, and if you use it, how you use it. I often wonder about that. So that comes out in early November, and then we have something for, again, early November, same date. This is something I want to send out to Janet Wortman. I want her to review this for me. I will review it myself, but I want her to do it. I want her to build up a side gig as a reviewer of period books. This is by Tracy Borman. I think we've seen this already. This is The Stolen Crown, Treachery, Deceit, and the Death of the Tudor Dynasty. And there is Janet's girl on the cover at age 200. Inspired by recent revelations over the manuscript of Elizabeth I's earliest biographer, William Camden, Tracy Borman adds to her successful authoritative oeuvre with this book, the dramatic and untold story of the lie about the controversial succession that ended the legendary Tudor era and changed the course of British history. In the long and dramatic annals of that history, no transition from one monarch to another has been as fraught and consequential as that which ended the Tudor dynasty and launched the Stuart era in 1603, where Queen Elizabeth refused to sit or lay down. She was standing up because she was afraid if she sat down, if she lost even that much agency, she would finally die. She just staggered on her feet and leaned against balustrades and whatnot and refused to sit down. And in the great Helen Mirren movie, she says to fetch me a priest girl, I've a mind to die. I don't think she had I think the one historical source that we have for her final words it isn't quite that good. That's a Hollywood version. It's still pretty good. Okay, so this is about the switch from the last of the Tudors to the first of the Stuarts, and how it happened. Why there was no clear chain of succession. Why was that? Why is all of this so murky? And did Elizabeth actually designate a successor, even on her deathbed? Did she do that? Whose word are we taking for that? I want to send this copy to Janet Wortman and see if she will review it for me. She's an authority, and I'm not. So there you go. Those are the two opened ones, and then we'll do some unopened ones. And these are soggy, so they might not open well. They were on the front porch, and it is pretty heavily raining out there. What have we got here? It's a pretty thing, whatever it is. Oh, very nice. Oh, I don't have the other one in front of me. I opened that off camera too, now that I think about it. This is Brian Herbert and Kevin Anderson, and this is their... Brian Herbert started to do a whole bunch of fan fiction of his set in his father's world, in Frank Herbert's The Universe of Dune. Huge number of books. And they came out originally as hardcovers and then mass market paperbacks, and I did not like the first trilogy. Not for any kind of inventiveness. I mean, it's fan fiction, so you can do what you want, but because it wasn't as well written. Frank Herbert's books are terrific. They're narratively terrific. And these books seemed like fan fiction. But I thought nothing. I thought it was relatively benign. And then I saw, much later, 10 years later or more, I saw a whole bunch of newcomers to Frank Herbert's world, to Dune and Dune Messiah and Children of Dune and whatnot, thinking that these are all part of one huge series, when they most certainly are not. They most certainly are not. I started seeing people online on Instagram or Facebook or whatever saying, well, okay, but do I need to read these in order? I should start with the earliest one and work my way forward. So I'll read 6 books, and then I'll read House Atreides, and then I'll read House Harkonnen and House Carino, and then maybe those things end with, then the next thing you do is you read Dune. I said to a lot of those people, no, this is fan fiction. You do not need to read anything before you read Dune. This might be authorized by the Frank Herbert estate, but it's fan fiction. And I thought no more of it. I would read these things as they came out, but I really didn't give it a whole much more consideration. And then the publisher, was this Tor? Yeah, Tor started trying to lure me in by reprinting these things in lovely floppy trade paperbacks with new cover art. And they did, I have already the Butlerian Jihad, and I reread it. I made a mistake with the Butlerian Jihad. I reread that book, but I reread it like one book to the north or to the south of the Dune Encyclopedia. And in this case, specifically, the long entry for the Butlerian Jihad in the Dune Encyclopedia, which reads very different. It's a very different thing than what you get in Brian Herbert's The Butlerian Jihad. And maybe that was the wrong timing. This is the continue. This is the sequel to the Butlerian Jihad, The Machine Crusade, in a nice floppy trade paperback. How wonderful. So I wonder if this means I'll get the third one too, The Battle of Corin, which actually has a sandworm on the cover. I wonder if I'll get that as well. I hope so. This is the story of something that is only alluded to in Dune, in the Dune novels. The one thing you'll notice about the Dune novels is that there's not much in the way of computers. There's all sorts of advanced technology, but not computers. Not something like in the typical science fiction of the day, where it would be a big pixelated screen and it would talk to you when you talk to it. There's almost nothing of that in Frank Herbert's Dune world, and that's intentional. That's because there was an event called the Butlerian Jihad, where mankind rebelled against the thinking machines that had almost destroyed it and outlawed them for all time. It's actually crucially at the heart of the reason why there is an Imperium in Dune. The Imperium in Dune is these thousands of planets who are linked by faster-than-light travel. And in every other science fiction, if you're going to have faster-than-light travel, you need some sort of supercomputer. Not every other, of course. Their scanners live in vain. But most of them, you need a supercomputer to chart your course if you're going to be traveling faster than the speed of light. And in Dune, that is the Guild Navigators, who are living beings, who've been mutated to be able to do that with prescience, with precognition, and a huge amount of the spice melange. It's not a computer. It's not a navcom or anything like that. And I just recently read the Butlerian Jihad. I reread it in this trade paperback, but now I will read the Machine Crusade, the sequel to that. Maybe I should reread that as well. I'll just go at this as a science fiction novel, fan fiction of Dune. And probably I will end up feeling a lot more kindly disposed to it than I did originally. That's the key thing that you have to understand here, is that this might be authorized by the Frank Herbert estate, but this does not impinge on Frank Herbert's novels. That's the one thing I didn't like, is when the Frank Herbert estate and Tor started to reissue these things, the last mass market reissue made it look like it was all one uninterrupted series. And that drives me nuts no matter what. That drove me nuts with Michael Shar's book, The Killer Angels, where his son's books, Jeff Shar's books on the Civil War, were marketed as though they were part of a trilogy, a portion of which was The Killer Angels. No. The Killer Angels were written separately to stand alone. So I don't mind people reading Jeff Shar's books or Brian Herbert's books, but anyway, I'm over a lot of, despite what it sounds like, I'm over a lot of those demons here. So I'll be happy to reread this. Absolutely happy. And how wonderful that Tor is doing this. That they're not just ignoring these things. They're bringing them out in these beautiful trade paperbacks. I wouldn't mind if they did that with all of Brian Herbert's Dune stuff. Not in the slightest. I'll give it all another try. And then we have one more package, and then we'll be done. On this rainy day, you should look at the windows here. You can't even look out them. They're soaked with rain. And we'll get occasional periods. We'll get an occasional period where it'll lighten up, but they're totally unpredictable. So you're just stuck. We're just stuck inside. Oh, fantastic. Okay, great. Fantastic. All right, this is the finished copy of something we've seen on this channel before. This is the finished copy of Lionhearts by Dan Jones. That is our author there. And this is the third book in his Essex Dog trilogy. Set during the tumultuous 14th century and starring an iron-thewed band of mercenary warriors and their friends and their time and their superiors, and this is a wonderful. I have praised this series over and over again. It's absolutely wonderful for what it does. Oh my God, if you have a young man in your life who is drifting away from reading, hand him these books. Hand him these books and stand back. And the nicest thing is, one of the nicest things about this trilogy, if it is a trilogy, if it stays a trilogy, I want a dead body. To know that there's never going to be another Essex Dog books. I want a dead body of the main character. If you've read these books, you know who I'm talking about. I want his dead body. Better yet, dead and buried. I keep thinking about Principal Rooney and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Just dig up your grandmother. It's too tempting. These things have been an enormous financial success. I'm not sure there's not going to be another one, but technically this is the third book in a trilogy. And it will. One of the nicest things about that trilogy is that if you give this to a young man who's drifting away from reading, not only will he love this series, but it will almost certainly send him not to more military fiction, but to history. It will almost certainly send him to the reign of Edward III and the Black Death, which is a major. It's the Black Death is largely offstage in this book, but it is the most major character, and it's very wise on Dan Jones' part to understand that that should be so. It has changed the world. That the Essex Dogs, who are now all scattered and in retirement, ready for getting the band back together, it's changed their world completely, and that's good. That is just what it would have been like. So I'm very happy to have the finished copy of this. I don't need any impulse to reread it. I will happily reread it. So that's historical fiction. Okay, so we have Lionhearts by Dan Jones. I don't know how good this book would be if you hadn't read the previous two. Although now that I think about it, 2 years have passed. Yeah, now that I think about it, you could read this on its own. I don't think you'd miss much. I'm trying to think of the scenes that would really hamper you. There's one major revelation that has kind of sort of been building for 3 books, but its dramatic import is underscored in the moment in the book, I think, sufficiently. I don't know. I don't know why anyone would read this book if they hadn't read the first 2, but I think you could. But anyway, we have Lionhearts. We have The Machine Crusade, the sequel to the Butlerian Jihad. We're getting more and more. We're getting the whole story of the Butlerian Jihad and the birth of the Bene Gesserit and the Bene Tlaxu and the whole Mentats and whatnot. Then The Body Digital. What is your relationship with ChatGPT? I'd love to know. The Stolen Crown. Another book by Tracy Borman, an author who usually doesn't let me down, so I'm not all that worried. And finally, The Uncanny X-Men number 139. Welcome to the X-Men, Kitty Pryde. Hope you survived the experience. That is Kitty Pryde, who has the superpower of turning intangible, and she is joining the team, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Sometimes I've had X-Men writers who do it correctly, I think, and say that the X-Men, the actual team of the X-Men, is a field exploratory team. It's like SEAL Team 6 for the Army. And that New Mutants can join Professor Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters without ever joining the X-Men. That the two aren't the same thing, is what I'm trying to say. A lot of writers have made it clear that the two are not the same thing. Chris Claremont himself made that clear with the New Mutants, that you can have young people at the school who are not going out on missions. They're not fighting Magneto. Anyway, there you go. That is a facsimile edition. And that wraps it up. That is a soggy day's mail. But I'll be back, hopefully on drier days. Thank you, BookTube.